Watching the latest episodes of Amphibia, Feud, and Adventures in Catsitting, it makes me very aware of how fundamentally unfair Marcy's life has been in comparison. Now, it's not that Marcy could not have made better choices, or that it was perfectly alright for her to hide the fact that she was the one who was the most instrumental in all of them ending up in Amphibia. And I'm certainly not saying that I believe anything other than that she's going to end up perfectly healthy and happy by the end of the show. I think she's going to have a good ending, though she has a long way to go until she gets there. Nonetheless, she was a lonely kid, always feeling underappreciated and undervalued, feeling disconnected from her everyday reality, and instead becoming obsessed with video games and all sorts of nerdy fantasia. She clings desperately to her friends because they were the people who really loved her and cared about her and were there for her. And then they're torn away from her. She's left completely isolated. This leads her to such a deep despondency that she seeks to leave the world she's in altogether. Against all odds, this somehow works. She and all her friends are transported to Amphibia, and she has the life she always wanted. And she works hard. She dedicates herself to learning everything she can about utopian culture, and the language, and the infrastructure of this world, and the political situations of Newtopia. She becomes a loyal ranger, helping Newtopia repel those who would seek to come into its gates. And as she flourishes, as she really blossoms into the person she always could have been, had her intelligence been able to apply itself beyond just her schoolwork or her nerdy interests, she helps the lives of those around her and actively makes their lives better. She proves herself as an outsider to the people of Newtopia. She gets a statue in her honor, and everyone appreciates her, everyone cares for her, and no one would say she doesn't deserve that. And in the end, none of it matters. The king turns on her, just about kills her, and only keeps her alive in order to use her as a puppet and a vessel for the dark and evil force that as yet remains unnamed. I was thinking about this so overtly because of how the show, in its most recent episodes, handles the planters' actions on Earth and the consequences of their actions. Their behavior is not ideal, they cause a lot of problems, and yet they're forgiven. This week's episodes were fine. Perfectly alright. Not offensive. Not particularly weird or bizarre or inept. Just perfectly ordinary episodes that are par for the course for the show, and they also failed to move me as much as I really wanted them to. This is in large part because there are no stakes, there's no sense of danger or uncertainty, no sense that what seems so solid and firm could dissolve into liquid unknowns. In Feud, Sprig constantly disobeys Anne's mother. He almost gets himself and Anne killed, and he almost destroys the food truck run by the competition to the Boon Choi's restaurant Tai Go, and yet he's rewarded by being welcomed into the family. The same pattern occurs to a lesser extent in the other episode, Adventures in Catsitting, in which the planters are feeling so passionate about wanting to not be freeloaders, wanting to help Anne's family that they take Domino to the vet, only to fail at that. When the cat gets away, they have to call up Anne's father, and at the end of the episode, he assures them that they don't have to feel guilty about anything, that they will never be in the Boon Choi's debt because of what they did in taking Anne in. Which is a very nice moment. It's probably my favorite moment of these two episodes, but it also applies itself to the same pattern, and it's the same pattern we saw in the last Anne-centric episode of the show, too. Anne wants these three to acclimate to Earth. She goes and takes them to the mall, trains them, and they fail. Once again, the planters do not succeed at following the instructions that they're given. And yet Anne forgives them anyway. Now, I'm not saying all this to suggest that the planters should not have been forgiven, or that they're nothing but burdens on the Boon Chois, though Sprig does try my patience at times. I'm just drawing the comparison. Marcy goes above and beyond what anyone could have expected of her. She dedicates herself tirelessly to improving the city she's landed in. She's an ideal citizen. She's a tireless scholar and a brave and fearless warrior. And yet none of it matters. None of it earns her any real goodwill with the king, because the planters have people who care about them, and Marcy did not. Considering all these differences between Marcy's life in Amphibia and how the planters have tried and partly failed to acclimate to Earth, makes me wonder what would have happened had Marcy stayed on Earth. Would her life have been better? I think conventional wisdom would suggest yes, because, well, she wouldn't have gotten stabbed through with a flaming sword and then had her body used by a megalomaniacal king as a vessel for his eldritch horror master. And yes, all of that is very bad. And I think it's a little disquieting to suggest that if you told Marcy everything that would happen to her in Amphibia, she would probably still choose to go there instead of staying on Earth, but I think she probably would. Now, there are a lot of people I've seen who are a bit dismissive of Marcy, and they say that, oh, well, her problems weren't that bad. She should have just learned to try and live with them and rise above them. And, well, it is true to a certain extent. I do see where these people are coming from, because I personally, even as a 13, 14-year-old, would not have reacted that way to what we see Marcy endure. But I'm not Marcy. None of us are. Marcy is clearly suffering. She clearly seeks an escape from that suffering. She's miserable, lonely, and desperate. She wants relief. She wants joy. She wants the ability to fulfill the potential she knows she has stirring inside her. Even with her friend, she was existentially unfulfilled. On Earth, she was regarded just as a clumsy nerd, even by her best friend in the world. She was smart, but she was also kind of a joke. Her friends made her life on Earth bearable. On Amphibia, she was valued. Her input was cared about. She was considered the intelligent and thoughtful scholar she is. She became well regarded by the citizens of Utopia, not because of luck, but because she deserved to be, because she consistently proved herself as a capable and intellectual warrior and ranger who was always thinking of ways to improve the lives of the citizens of Newtopia. That's the life Marcy wanted for herself, and I don't think it was wrong for her to want that. And going back to these more lighthearted episodes in which Anne and the Plantars will always usually have the forgiveness of those around them, just like they did when they were in Wardwood and all the townspeople forgave them. That level of tenderness and compassion really makes what happens to Marcy look all the more cutting by comparison, all the more absolutely devastating. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Amphibia. These episodes were alright. I'm really fascinated to see what they are going to do with the structure of the show in the future. I'm really interested to see how much Marcy we will end up getting this season, and to what extent the show will actually linger on what happened to her. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.